Today we'll be flying from Orlando to Edinburgh, Scotland in Virgin Atlantic's most affordable seating option, Virgin Atlantic Economy Classic. But after that, we'll return home in Virgin Atlantic's most premium seating option, Upper Class. And along the way, we'll compare these two very different experiences, visit the nicest Virgin Atlantic lounge in the world, and of course share with you exactly how we booked this entire itinerary using miles and points so that you can do the exact same thing yourself. All right, but first up, Virgin Atlantic Economy Classic. So, admittedly, I'm a bit paranoid and haven't checked a bag in years, but the economy check-in process looks to be exactly what you would expect from economy check-in. Once we were through security, we did check out one of the lounges since we have priority pass through a number of credit cards, but typically this is not something that would be included with your Virgin Atlantic economy seat. I resisted the urge to upgrade last minute since it would have completely ruined this video, but after a short wait, it was finally time to board. Okay, so honestly, this may have been the most comfortable economy flight of my life. Shortly after takeoff, dinner was served. I had the chicken curry with this chocolate mousse thing that was so delicious, and Aaron had the vegetarian pasta. And while it was certainly nothing to write home about, I've had some pretty inedible economy meals in the past, so this was a pleasant surprise. Since this was a red-eye flight, I put on a movie, and having been blessed with the ability to sleep on planes, I faded away, and before I knew it, we were about to land. They did offer what I would call a lighter breakfast, which consisted of this weird pesto muffin thing, some yogurt with granola, and a delicious cup of burnt coffee that had clearly been heated on the surface of the sun. But beggars can't be choosers, and I needed the caffeine. Okay, anyway, welcome to Edinburgh. So before we head off on our adventure, before eventually catching up with you in London for our upper class flight home, let me quickly explain how we booked that economy flight using points. I found that Virgin Atlantic seat from Orlando to Edinburgh for just 10,000 points each and $152 in fees, which is already pretty good, but one of the reasons I love Virgin Atlantic is they have a companion award seat benefit where if I book an award seat, I can get a second award seat for 50% off simply by calling Virgin Atlantic. Now that process can be a little bit painful, but it meant that my wife's ticket was only 5,000 points, and since I transferred these points during a 30% transfer bonus, I only had to transfer 12,000 points total, or 6,000 points each. So if we take the cash price of $1,900, subtract the $152 in fees, and divide that by the 6,000 points we paid for each ticket, that's a redemption value of 29 cents per point. Now, obviously, Virgin Atlantic's fees are much higher, and that number is heavily skewed by the companion award seat benefit, which I'm only able to take advantage of because I'm traveling with my wife. But it's tough to argue with 6,000 points to cross the Atlantic. All right, I'm gonna go explore the UK, but we'll pick up with you in London for our upper class flight home, and if that's what their economy product looks like, then I cannot wait to see upper class. Today we'll be spending 8 hours in Virgin Atlantic upper class. We'll start by exploring one of the best business class lounges in the world, the Virgin Atlantic Clubhouse here at London Heathrow. But before we get to that, let's break down the numbers for this upper class flight so that we can all just relax and enjoy what will hopefully be a pretty incredible experience. Today's London to Washington upper class flight is usually 57,000 points, but Virgin Atlantic was running a 50% discount on reward flights to and from London. So it was only 28,000 points, and remember that companion award benefit that I mentioned earlier? Well, using that, I was able to get my wife's ticket for 50% off of my already discounted ticket. So her upper class ticket was only 14,000 points, bringing our total for 2 upper class tickets to 43,125 points. And since I use Virgin Atlantic frequently and speculatively transfer points during their many transfer bonuses, that means I only transferred 34,000 American Express points for this booking, or 17,000 points each. That's great, but the huge bummer is that the fees on these tickets were ridiculous. $794 each to be exact, and if you're wondering, no, the fees are not discounted. Still though, considering this flight is nearly $9,000, at least according to Virgin Atlantic, that's still a redemption value of 47 cents per point. Again, make of that what you want. The fees are so high with Virgin Atlantic, and the cash prices are so inflated that the value per point doesn't really mean a whole lot to me. But all I know is I'm about to fly across the Atlantic in upper class for fewer points than the Aer Lingus economy seat in Dublin where we just were. All right, now that we've got all of that nerdy math out of the way, let's go check out the Virgin Atlantic Clubhouse here at London Heathrow. Alright, it's a little noisy here at the rooftop lounge, but if you're an aviation nerd like myself, then I don't think it gets much better than this. Overall, this is definitely the nicest lounge that I've ever been to. I'm sure there are nicer lounges out there, but as far as I'm concerned, you really can't ask for much more than what this particular lounge has to offer. Quick pro tip for you, and this applies to a lot of lounges, not just Virgin Atlantic. Usually they only let you in 3 hours before your flight, but if you're coming in from a connecting flight, then they will actually let you into the lounge, even though in our particular case, we have a 7-hour layover. So if you're gonna splurge on a business class experience, then part of that experience is the lounge itself in most cases. So if you're able to, you might wanna splurge on that experience on a connecting flight so that you can maximize the amount of time in the lounge. Otherwise, you're only gonna have 3 hours, although for most people, that's probably more than enough. All right, with all of that being said, I think it is finally time for our Virgin Atlantic upper class flight. So we're currently on an Airbus A350, which is the exact same Virgin Atlantic plane that Kara and Nate flew in upper class a few months ago. So I'll leave the detailed airline reviews to them because they're much better at it than I am. But don't worry, we're still gonna give you our high-level thoughts on what you can expect from a Virgin Atlantic upper class experience, and of course, whether or not it is worth the extra points to upgrade compared to the economy flight that we flew last week. So having had some time to reflect on this upper class experience, let's just say I would spend the extra points again in a heartbeat. Before we even sat down, we were greeted with mimosas, or orange juice in my case, since I still have the palate of a child, and from there, things only got better. We opted for seats 1D and 1G, all the way at the front of the upper class cabin, which means we were right next to the restrooms, but this did give us a little bit of extra space, and this seat was noticeably bigger than configurations like Lufthansa and KLM's business class that we've flown in the past. Our seat selection also meant that we didn't get a window seat, but thanks to this movable divider in the middle, this basically gave us our own private cocoon, which I always love. We also just happened to be flying on Virgin Atlantic's 40th anniversary, so they had a special birthday menu, and this was easily the best food I have ever had on an airplane. Shortly after takeoff, they served us our choice of appetizer. I opted for this pepper jack soup, followed by a long list of entree options, where I got this breaded chicken with potatoes, which I probably could have eaten 3 of. Dessert was no letdown either, and while I have absolutely no clue what it was incredible, and they even had these fun 40th anniversary macarons. If you need a comparison to the economy food that we were served, I think the bread says it all. And of course, on a flight this long, the ability to lie flat and truly relax is incredible, especially after a chaotic few weeks of non-stop travel. And yes, I still love nothing more than getting funny looks as the miles and points nerd strolling into an upper class cabin of people who paid thousands and thousands of dollars for their seat. I'm pretty sure that will never get old. All right, well, I think that's a wrap on our Virgin Atlantic adventure, but overall, I would say it is definitely worth the upgrade if you have the extra points to spare and you can stomach the significantly higher fees. And overall, I'd say that is the case whether it's Virgin Atlantic or really any other airline, because if you're not used to the whole business class upgraded experience, then it is something that you will definitely not forget. All right, but my buddy thinks it is the middle of the night, so I'm gonna go get some sleep, but if you wanna start earning some Virgin Atlantic points to earn your own Virgin Atlantic business class seat, then I'll leave a link down below to our top travel credit cards page if you wanna learn more, sign up, and help support Daily Drop. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.